Hello everyone, and welcome to this latest Minty Recaps, which, if this is the first time you've ever watched one of these, it is basically just me talking about a thing for a little bit, and hoping to get this video under half an hour. But either way, this one is me discussing and reviewing, in a way, movies that I have seen the previous month, because I have this year like a therapy goal kind of a thing of just watching more movies that I haven't seen before, be them actual newly released movies that have come out recently, or just movies that I haven't seen before that are just new to me. I was able to get through 20 movies, which is my goal. It's a try to watch 20 new movies a month, and hopefully in this list of movies you'll see something that you want to also check out as well, based on my little reviews and recommendations. And the first movie I watched this month was Last Night in Soho, which is a movie I was really excited for and really anticipating because I do love Edgar Wright, and I also love Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, the 60s, and horror movies, and basically everything that wrapped up around it, also in fashion as well. So like everything wrapped up around this movie I was really anticipating, really excited for. And honestly, the more I thought about it, the more I would probably lower the score that I gave it a little bit, but I still very much love this movie. And I really like the style of it more than anything else. I like the style of it, the acting of it, the premise of it was really cool. I really liked it, but I probably would drop it down a little bit, but I gave it a 4.5 stars out of 5. I highly recommend this movie, especially since it is so divisive as well. So I highly recommend watching it so you can get your own opinion on it as well. Next movie I watched was one that I saw randomly on Hulu because it was really short and I need to get through the movies. It was called Cryptozoo, and it was by Dash Shaw. And I feel like the premise of it was something that was right up my alley. It's just the actual art style of the movie and how it was presented and the pacing of it really dragged the whole thing down, because like the premise of it is, what if there was a animal refuge, basically like a zoo for cryptids, and like that's pretty cool. And then just like it looked like it was animated like an early Adult Swim show, and I'm like, that's just not for me. It's just not for me. And I gave it a 2.5 stars. It just wasn't really for me, but I do like the premise of it. I do appreciate the artistic swing that it took. Next one's another Hulu film that technically it was from Fox Searchlight. I'm just going to keep saying it's from Fox Searchlight because I still disagree with Disney buying Fox. But either way, this one was, I found out actually based on a book. It's called Rosaline by Karen Maine, starring Caitlin Dever, and it's based on a book about Rosaline, the cousin of Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. And it's like a comedic take on Romeo and Juliet from a different perspective. And I just thought I might want to say this ahead of time as well. I hate Romeo and Juliet. It is my least favorite Shakespeare production play or whatever. I really do not like Romeo and Juliet. Rosaline, good movie. Very good movie. Gave it a 4 out of 5. The only issues I had with it was that the script of it felt a little bit like it wasn't sure what it wanted to try and be. It felt like it was trying to be both a like movie like Booksmart along with just classic Romeo and Juliet, and I feel like it should have just stuck to one of the two and either just been full out classic Romeo and Juliet with just a comedic take on it, so comedic Shakespeare, or Booksmart but in Shakespearean times. That was my only real issue with it. I thought it was really good, though. It's my favorite version of Romeo and Juliet now because I really just like this version of the characters. And I thought it was a really good movie, so I highly recommend watching it. 4 out of 5 star for sure. Then I went on a very, very fun little streak of a couple of movies, and I finally watched the Magic Mike films. So Magic Mike from 2012, directed by Steven Soderbergh. I had heard about these movies for the longest time, as I'm pretty sure everyone has at this point. And I was going into it thinking, this will be fine. This won't be anything really important. This will be fine. What I got, though, in the end were two of the best movies in a franchise I think I've ever seen. Hands down, the best performances from Channing Tatum I have ever seen. The Magic Mike film, let's talk about Magic Mike 1 first. Magic Mike 1, I thought was a good movie. I thought it was a very good movie. Only real issues with it were the actual main character. I forgot the guy's name, but the actual main character that isn't Mike. I thought he was pretty much a very boring lead character to actually follow at all. I did not like him at all. And also the color grading of the movie. This was very 2012 color grading where it's like, hey, if you're not inside the club, it's just yellow. The whole movie's just yellow. But beyond that, everything else in the movie, phenomenal. Obviously, the actual stripper performances were great. They were hilariously choreographed and well executed, and like these is just like some peak human athleticism here, which is phenomenal. But the actual story at the heart of it about this group of basically brothers, just in a sense, is like this like familial, like brotherly bond all these dudes have to just try and make it in the world and try and like make something better themselves. It's just so good. And then also Mike just like trying to find love in all the wrong places in a way. So good. So good. I love this movie. 4 out of 5 stars. However, then I watched Magic Mike XXL the next day, directed by Gregory Jacobs. Magic Mike XXL is better than Magic Mike, as everyone has already said this before. Magic Mike XXL didn't fully grab me initially. It did not fully grab me initially. But man, when it finally did, it just took me and ran with it. Just ran with it. Once I realized that it was just a road trip movie with all these bros just hanging out just for one last ride on a road trip, sold. Best movie ever. Okay, not the best movie ever, but you know what I mean. Like, as soon as we got the scene where we had Mr. Big Dick Rick, Joe Manganiello, doing a performance by himself just to get his confidence back in front of a bored convenience store worker to I Want It That Way playing by Backstreet Boys, I was sold. Also, like, the surprise cameos in the movie, phenomenal. It's close to a perfect film. It is close to an actual perfect film. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's so good. If you have not seen the Magic Mike movies, get over the stigma of them. Watch them. They are phenomenal films. Next one I'm not going to talk about too much. It's a movie that I just randomly saw on Hulu, as with most of these, called Shadow in the Cloud. It's a World War II horror plane movie. It's hard to describe. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's absolutely batshit insane. Chloe Grace Moretz is awesome, and it was directed by Rosaline Liang. And I'm not going to talk much about this movie because it was also written by a really, really bad person in Hollywood. And you can look that up yourself. But it was a batshit insane movie that I thought had a very neat premise to it in terms of what it was a horror movie about. And also the actual directing of this movie was honestly wild. And beyond the writer, it's decent. It's a decent batshit movie. And that's about all I want to say about it. But 3.5 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5 for sure. I probably would drop it down a little bit actually as well. But yeah, 3.5. Next one, also another 3.5, but a really high 3.5. It's an animated movie called The Amazing Maurice. So I went and saw this one with some co-workers of mine. We were supposed to go see Magic Mike, The Last Dance, but it was also opening weekend. We're like, we're not going to go see this movie at like 7 o'clock at night after work on opening weekend. We're not doing that. Knew nothing about it going in. Watched the trailer beforehand just to like get some type of like a groundwork for it. Found out it's a Terry Pratchett movie. It's a movie based on a Terry Pratchett book, and it was in the Discworld, full out in the Discworld, with a honestly pretty killer voice cast as well. And beyond some of the more tropey kids movie things, this was a really good movie that felt very Terry Pratchett, to the point where like it made me really want to actually read Terry Pratchett. So I did. I went and actually read Color of Magic, which is a very, very good introduction to Discworld. And yeah, this is just a good movie. This is a really good, fun family movie. It does have some interesting scenes and some interesting themes in it that I think are good for children to learn. And I think that's honestly just what this movie was really good at. Is really good at being a movie for all ages that could like do some things. Also, the design of the villain in the movie was so good. It was such a good villain design, and it was peak Terry Pratchett as well. Honestly, love this movie. Highly recommend The Amazing Maurice. 3.5, about a high 3.5. I might bump it up to 4. Next movie is one that I feel a little bad about, just a little bit bad about, and it's La La Land. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I did not like this movie. And my problem with the movie is that I feel like I would have loved this movie if I had watched it closer to when it originally came out in 2016. Because I was all over wanting to see this movie when it first came out, because it had everything I loved. Emma Stone, a musical about Hollywood itself, really great music, just really great cinematography, and the way it looked, everything. Then the Oscars happened, and then Damien Chazelle just happened in a way. Damien Chazelle just happened, and I started realizing, like, I don't like Damien Chazelle's work at all. The further I got away from the initial release of this movie, the less and less I felt like I was going to love this movie, and it's true. I watched this movie in 2023 where I just didn't like it. It didn't feel like a good musical. Emma Stone feels very stilted, I guess the best way to put it, in this movie. She feels okay. Ryan Gosling's entire character, I just don't like. I just do not like his character at all. And yeah, it also didn't feel like a musical either. And I'm like, yep, this movie I missed it. I just missed this movie. I missed seeing this movie when I actually would have loved it, because I don't like it now. And that's just on me. That's just on me. However, next movie I did really like. I did really, really like it. And it's a movie I didn't know about. And it's called Werewolves Within, directed by Josh Rubin, based weirdly on a VR game from Ubisoft with the same name. But Werewolves Within was a really fun horror comedy, whodunit mystery type of thing with werewolves. And a really good cast, including Melanie Weintraub as one of the main characters in it. Very funny movie. It had that peak. It had that perfect, like, it had that peak comedy where it was like the comedy in What We Do in the Shadows, but not as a mockumentary, if that makes any sense. But I really liked it. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It was really fun, and also not that long of a movie either. And I thought it was just a really good time. Also, the poster of it is adorable. I mean, look at this poster. Look at this poster. It's adorable. Love this poster. Then I went on a whole streak watching just a bunch of animated movies because they were shorter, and I want to catch up on some of the DC animated ones. So let's just kind of rapid fire through these ones. Catwoman Hunted, directed by Shinsuke Terasawa. Good. Gave it a 3 out of 5. It was good. Voice acting in it could have been a lot better. The anime influences of the movie I thought were really good, and I think DC should definitely do more movies like this, where they just take a character and explore it in a different animation style with a very specific vision for it. I think that was really cool. But yeah, voice acting could have been better. Also, the movie somehow ended 3 different times, and I don't know why. It had 3 different, pretty much well-suited endings for the film. I don't know why they did that. But yeah, 3 out of 5. It was okay. It was alright. Next one, Justice Society World War II. Absolutely loved it. 4.5 out of 5. I love the Justice Society. Also, it was directed by Jeff Wamaster. I love the Justice Society. I love them so much, and I'm glad they actually got an animated movie, and it was perfect in every way for it to be Justice Society. And if they basically took this movie and made it live action, it would probably be my favorite comic book movie of all time. I loved everything about it. Just everything. Also, I really like the new in-house DC animation style for the movies. I really like it. I think it's a really good animation style for what they're going for and for the stories they're telling. But yeah, Justice Society World War II. I knew I was going to love it going into it because it's JSA. I did. I love this movie. 4.5 out of 5. Next one. This is another one I'm not going to be talking about too much because of the material it's based on. But it's an anime movie from Netflix directed by Kohei Ishiguro called Bright Samurai Soul. It's a strange anime spin-off side story thing from the fantasy universe of Bright, which was created by David Ayer a couple years ago with Will Smith. It wasn't as racist as Bright was, and it was definitely a lot better than Bright was. And it's weird how if you take this strange fantasy concept, strange urban fantasy concept world, and you just put it out of modern day LA, how it kind of works okay. But yeah, Bright Samurai Soul, it's a movie. It's certainly a movie. And it's certainly a movie in the Bright universe, for sure. Give it a 3.5 out of 4. Thought the animation was decent for it. I thought the overall story was pretty decent for it. And yeah, it's Bright, but samurais and ninjas. That's basically all that is there. Speaking of samurais and ninjas, Batman Ninja. Finally watched Batman Ninja. And directed by Junpei Mizusaki. I only really have one thing to say for this movie, and that it is absolutely bonkers. This movie is completely and utterly bonkers in all the best way. I can't really explain it. You just need to watch it. It is just so off the wall anime in every possible way. It was really good. It was a very, very good anime movie, for sure. And just like with Catwoman Hunted, DC should just do this more often, where they just take a character and then just give it to a creator and just have them go wild with that character and just do whatever they want to. They really just need to do that. Also, Marvel needs to do the same thing as well. But yeah, DC, Batman Ninja, great movie, 4 out of 5. absolutely off the wall bonkers. So then I watched a documentary that I've been meaning to watch for a while now called The Last Blockbuster. It was directed by Taylor Morden, and it is a documentary about, obviously, the last Blockbuster. It's about the rise of Blockbuster, the fall of Blockbuster, and then now this last one opened in Bend, Oregon, which, happy to say, it is still open. It is still open, operational, and running. I now follow them on Instagram, and it is a fun follow. But yeah, it's a really good documentary, and it made me really nostalgic for Blockbuster and miss video rental stores. And I know for a fact I'm not the only one, but yeah, it's a really good documentary, very heartfelt documentary. And it actually goes into the history of Blockbuster, which I'm really glad it did. And I'm really glad it showed that Blockbuster didn't necessarily fail for any fault of its own. It was just a product of the 2008 financial crisis. And that sucks. That really sucks. But I'm glad we still have the one Blockbuster left. And it has basically become like an evergreen type of tourist attraction in a way, to hope that it will always be there. Hopefully it will always be there. But yeah, Last Blockbuster. 4 out of 5 star. Really good documentary. Really good heartfelt documentary. However, the next thing is not a good up thing to watch. Directed by Kyle Edward Ball. You probably all know where this is going. This is Skinamarink. This is a very strange art house analog horror film. This movie got spoiled for a lot of people because it came out at a festival. Some people got to see it early, and then it leaked online, and then TikTok got a hold of it, and then people were like, well, this is like the scariest movie of all time. It's really not. It's really, really not. This movie I literally gave the lowest score I've ever given to any movie ever that isn't called Morbius, because I didn't even score that movie. I give it a 1.5 out of 5. I appreciate the big swing that was taken for this movie. However, this movie made zero sense to me, and I kind of understand that was kind of the point. This movie was supposed to make you think and supposed to make you question what exactly it was about. I was more questioning why I was watching the film at the whole time. It's like only an hour and a half. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes long. It feels like 4 hours when you're watching, because nothing happens. It's just nothing happens. There's hardly any dialogue. When there is dialogue, you can't hear it for the most part, unless they want you to hear it. The actual camera angles, while artistic and interesting, don't make any sense, which is, again, the point, kind of. I just didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. This movie was not for me at all. Did not like it. But I appreciate the big swing that was taken in the movie. And I'm interested to see what Kyle does later, and if analog horror becomes a full thing. Intrigued by that. Movie was not for me. Next movie was for me, though, very much. I finally watched Labyrinth. It's taken me literally years to watch this movie, but I finally watched Labyrinth. I liked it, did not love it. Don't think it's necessarily a good movie, but I also don't care. It was just Jim Henson and David Bowie flexing on everyone by making a weird fantasy movie, all with puppets and David Bowie's massive codpiece. And that's all that it really was. 3.5 out of 5. This movie was also bonkers, but mostly just because it was a Jim Henson joint that had a lot of Muppets in it. And honestly, that's all you really need. Soundtrack was absolutely banging because it was David Bowie, but pretty much the actual story of this, didn't care. Honestly, did not care about that baby at all. The main character, didn't care about her. I thought she was a brat pretty much the whole entire movie until the very, very end. And David Bowie has a very large codpiece in the movie. And you know what? That's all you really need in the film. And he was living his best life. He was living his best glam rock life in this movie. And that's all you really need to know. It's just Jim Henson flexing on everyone and being like, nope, we're making a movie about weird troll puppets. And that's all we're doing here. And I'm like, you know what? Fair. Completely and utterly fair. Next one I had heard a lot about, and I was apprehensive, I guess the best way to put it, of it. So I watched Megan, or Mithrigan, if you want to be phonetically correct with the movie, but I watched Megan, directed by Gerard Johnstone. I feel like it's the most recent actual watch on the list. Going into it, I have a bit of a bias. I don't like horror movies that deal with dolls. I just don't. I just really don't. I don't know. Something about it. But going into it, I had low expectations, thought I wasn't going to like it. But then coming out on the other side of watching this movie, this was one of the most complex stories to tell about such incredibly complicated themes that I've ever seen. And I was thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed with this movie. And I am honestly excited to see where this franchise goes, because it clearly was very successful. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. But yeah, it's a very complicated movie that deals with themes of grief, of absentee parents, of the troubles with technology, of rogue AI, of love, of caring, and what that actually means. This movie explored so many different things, which is honestly perfect for what a horror movie is supposed to do. That's what horror is kind of supposed to do, is explore these really complex themes in very unique ways. Highly recommend Megan. Give it a 4 out of 5. The unrated version, I didn't really feel like it was necessarily too terrible, especially for a horror movie. Like, the kills could have been worse. There could have been more kills in it, and like language or whatever. It felt more like just a rated R movie. But I understand, like, when it first released, it was rated PG-13. So the unrated version, much better than the PG-13 version, but whatever. But next one I watched was a short one on Hulu called I'm Totally Fine, which was directed by Brandon Dermer. And it was an indie, like, art house type of movie dealing with grief from a very unique perspective. This time as a comedy, kind of as a comedy, where it's like this girl who starts a business, her friend and business partner dies right before this like really big deal, or like right after the really big deal, and then she's visited by an alien who takes the form of her best friend. So it's basically exploring these ideas of, what if you had one more day with this person you loved, but they're an alien? And it explores those types of themes. It's very complicated, very complex. I feel like Megan kind of handled it a little bit better, but what this movie was showing and what this movie was doing, I thought was very, very intriguing. And honestly felt very much like an indie, like it had an indie movie spirit to it, and I really enjoyed that. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, basically just because like there's some like script things in it, there was some like actual filmmaking things in it, and some directing that I'm like, okay, this could have been a little bit better. But overall, I think the whole movie was a very intriguing watch to do, especially after watching Megan. It was a very intriguing watch that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm glad I actually watched it. The next one was another one that had taken me a little bit of time to get to, but I finally did it. Directed by Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada. I finally watched Raya and the Last Dragon. I did not like this movie. Not as much as I didn't like Skinamarink, but I didn't like Raya and the Last Dragon. I gave it a 2 out of 5. I felt the issue with Raya was that the fantasy world they set up, based in and really reveling and exploring Southeast Asian and just Asian cultures in general, I thought was phenomenal. Kumandra as a fantasy world was really, really cool. And I wish they would have explored it better in a better movie that had better themes to it. Because the whole theme of the movie is like trust and like building trust with your community and with your people. However, the movie never really shows you why you should do that, like ever. And also it felt very strange as well, having this full fantasy world of all these diverse cultures, and then the whole plot basically being like, no, we should all unite them as one culture again. It's like, we didn't get to explore these cultures at all. And also that seems like it's going backwards as well. I love Awkwafina, I love Kelly Marie Tran, and I love the idea this movie was trying to go for with the fantasy world. I just thought it was executed very poorly. And if you like this movie, cool. I'm glad. Really glad. I just personally feel like it was executed poorly compared to what it could have been. And I want there to be more movies like this that explore cultures in a way to allow more people to see it. Which is why I like Coco. I love Coco. Coco's great. It explores Mexican, Spanish culture in such a way with the Dia de los Muertos. I love that so much. Like, if they could just do Coco with, like, Asia, perfect. It'd be great. But Raya and the Last Dragon, I just didn't personally like it at all. And then the last movie of the month brought it all back for me. And it now also topped my list of my favorite movie of the year. It usurped the menu. I will say it usurped the menu. 4.5 out of 5. But honestly, if I really felt like it, I might have given this movie a 5-star. I finally watched Top Gun Maverick, which was directed by Joseph Kosinski. Top Gun Maverick, I think, is a perfect film in pretty much every way possible. And this is coming from someone who just watched the first Top Gun like last year. This movie is so much better. So much better than the original Top Gun. It feels like the original Top Gun, but also feels like if Top Gun was an actual movie. if that makes any sense at all. But the story of Maverick himself and dealing with this idea of legacy and purpose, and basically teaching this new generation of fighter pilots and realizing his place in the world when all of his friends either have died or moved on is so intriguing and so complicated, and it's all of that wrapped up into a movie about literal fighter pilots and like Air Force training. And it doesn't feel like military propaganda either, like the first one did. It really doesn't. Also, there's a great scene where they're just playing football on the beach. Because, you know, we had to have another scene like that from the first movie. But yeah, Top Gun Maverick, just, it's very clear why it's a Best Picture nominee. And also why it made over $1 billion at the box office. I loved this movie so much. It was such a good movie. I cannot recommend watching Top Gun Maverick enough. And you don't even need to watch the first movie. You'll get some more out of it if you watch the first movie, but you really don't need to watch the first movie for it. Just go watch Top Gun Maverick. It is on Paramount Plus. It is also, I'm pretty sure, in Redbox at this point. Go watch Top Gun Maverick in some way possible. Yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Honestly, it's a perfect movie anyway. It's a 5 out of 5. I don't care, whatever. But yeah, go watch Top Gun Maverick. That's my 20 movies I watched this month. I was able to actually watch 20 movies in February, with it being a shorter month, but I was able to do it and got through it, and these were all really fun to watch, and I really enjoyed doing this. So this is a fun thing that I just like doing, and I hope you all like hearing these like little mini reviews for these movies as well, and hopefully there's some good recommendations in here for you all, so you can go watch them yourself, and go, like, let me know. And also let me know down in the comments as well, have you seen any of these movies? What did you think about any of these movies? And are any of these movies now interest you to go watch and check out for yourself? Yeah, just let me know that down in the comments as well. And if you like this video and like these little reviews and like these types of Minty recap monthly, like what I watch type of videos, leave a like as well. It really helps out. And if you want to show some support and some love for the channel as well, I do put a lot of effort into these, especially when it's like one of these types of weeks where I do multiple videos at one time. If you want to show some support, a little subscription, it's free, and it really means a lot to the channel as well. It truly does mean a lot to me. So yeah, if you like all these things and want to see more, leave a little subscription as well. I do at least one of these a month, because obviously watching movies a month. So yeah. But yeah, until then, just keep watching movies, everyone. Over here is going to be a playlist of the other Minty recaps. I've done a couple of them, just for like a yearly recommendation thing, monthly recommendations, and a thing about the DC slate as well. So remember, here's going to be a playlist for all that. And over here is going to be a video that YouTube recommends for you as well. So go ahead and watch that too. And until next time, just keep watching movies, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, peace, everyone. Peace.